I worked 15 years in my dad's business, but when he retired, he put my graduate brother in charge. So I quit, took all his customers, and now that his business is failing, they want my help. Sup Reddit. I worked 15 years building my dad's business, expecting to inherit it. He gave it to my college-educated brother instead. So I quit, opened my own shop, and took all their customers and employees. 8 months later, they came begging me to save them. Here's what went down. I, 38 male, got the most spectacular middle finger from the one person who was supposed to have my back. Picture this shit. Instead of going to college like every other 18-year-old in 2003, I chose to work at my father's auto shop. Just 3 bays, a decent location in a strip mall next to a sandwich shop that always smelled like onions. My dad Jose always talked about passing it down to me someday. Those exact words. Mijo, this will be yours. You're learning the family trade. 15 years I believed that bullshit. Started as the oil change kid, which is basically automotive hell. Picture crawling under cars that haven't seen a wash since Bush was president, getting brake fluid in your eyes because some jackass customer never mentioned the leak, learning to diagnose engine problems by sound alone. While my brother Esteban was off at some expensive college learning how to make PowerPoints and talk in corporate buzzwords, I was in the trenches. By year 5, I wasn't just the oil change guy anymore. Customers started asking for me specifically. Is Mateo working today? He's the only one who figured out why my Honda was making that clicking noise. That kind of trust takes years to build in this business, because car repairs are expensive, and most people assume you're trying to scam them. Jose started leaning on me more and more. His lunch breaks turned into 2-hour disappearing acts. Checking on parts orders became code for hanging out at the barbershop, telling the same stories about the good old days. Every responsibility he dropped landed on my desk, and I caught them all because I thought I was building something. I handled the difficult customers. You know, the ones who think mechanics are all crooks and demand to see every old part. I worked every weekend, stayed late for emergency repairs, covered for him when he decided Tuesday was golf day. The shop wasn't just my job, it was my identity. Then Esteban graduated college and started hanging around more often. Fresh out of business school with his fancy degree, talking about optimizing workflows and customer acquisition strategies like he just discovered fire. I figured he was just being Esteban, the annoying little brother who thought his college education made him Steve Jobs. I was wrong. Here's the moment. Everything went nuclear. One afternoon, Jose called me into his office after we'd closed. Same cramped office with the calendar from 2019 still hanging on the wall and coffee stains on every surface. I walked in thinking this was finally it. Retirement announcement, official handover, the moment I'd been working toward for 15 years. But Jose's not the type to ease into bad news. He just dropped it like a freaking anvil. I'm making Esteban the new shop manager. He'll be taking over operations starting Monday. I actually laughed. Had to be a joke, right? Esteban? The guy who calls a lug wrench a tire loosener and once asked me if brake pads go on the tires? Esteban has the education for this, mijo. Modern business practices. The automotive industry is changing, and we need someone who understands marketing, customer relations, financial planning. This MF was talking to me about customer relations like I hadn't been the face of this business for 15 years. Like I hadn't built every meaningful relationship we had with contractors, local businesses, and repeat customers. What about me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You'll be his assistant. You'll teach him the technical side while he handles the business side. Assistant. To my little brother. After 15 years of running this place, while Jose played golf and told war stories. That's when I felt something click inside my head. I looked him dead in the eyes and said the calmest, coldest words of my life. Congratulations on your new manager, Jose. I quit. You can't just quit, Mateo. This is a family business. You have responsibilities here. Had responsibilities. Past tense. You're being ridiculous. Esteban needs your help to... Esteban can figure it out with his fancy degree. You walk out that door, you're walking away from everything. No reference, no severance, no nothing. You think you can just abandon your family? I'm not abandoning anyone, Jose. You already abandoned me for someone with a piece of paper. Esteban, who'd been standing in the doorway like a scared little bitch, finally found his voice. Maybe this is for the best, Mateo. You never really understood the business side anyway. I turned to look at him. My little brother, who couldn't change a tire if his life depended on it, telling me I didn't understand the business I'd been running for 15 years. Good luck with that, hermano. You're gonna need it. Then I walked out. Just walked to my truck and drove to Raul's bar to find my best friend Carlos, because I had some planning to do. Behind me, I could hear Esteban already talking about his vision for growth, and Jose agreeing with everything he said. Perfect. Let them celebrate. Carlos has been my best friend since high school. He's also got zero patience for family drama and the mind of someone who's survived 3 divorces without going broke. Your dad did what now? Carlos nearly choked on his Tecate when I told him. Put Esteban in charge. After 15 years. Your brother Esteban. The guy who asked me last month if you're supposed to check oil when the engine is hot or cold. Yup. Carlos just shook his head and ordered us 2 more drinks. Well, screw them then. What's the plan? I'm going to destroy them, I said. Good. How? And that's when I started smiling for the first time in hours. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover and a clear mission. While Jose and Esteban were probably celebrating their decision over coffee and pastries, I was about to start the most important sales campaign of my life. But first, I needed to talk to the one person in my family who'd always told the truth, my uncle Roberto. Roberto's Jose's older brother, and they've had a complicated relationship since forever. Something about Roberto making bad choices and embarrassing the family name, which translated from Jose's bullshit, means Roberto refused to kiss his ass and live by his rules. He owns a small trucking company, drives a Harley. He's also the only person who's ever called Jose out on his control freak tendencies. Found him at his warehouse, elbow deep in the engine of a Freightliner that looked older than me. Mateo, what brings you by? Your Jose finally die? Not yet, but his business is about to. Roberto wiped his hands on a greasy rag and gave me that look he gets when he smells drama. Do tell. I explained the whole situation. Roberto listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, his expression getting darker with each detail. That sounds exactly like something your father would do, he said finally. Remember when he tried to tell me how to run my trucking business? Called me irresponsible for not expanding fast enough. What did you do? Told him to mind his own damn business. We barely speak anymore. He cracked a drink. So what's your plan, nephew? I'm opening my own shop. You need money? I've got savings. But I need space, and I need it fast. He grinned like Christmas morning. Well, it just so happens I know a guy who owns a perfect building about 2 miles from your Jose's place. Big enough for 4 bays, good parking, reasonable rent, and this guy might be willing to co-sign a lease for his favorite nephew. You do that? Kid, I've been waiting 15 years for someone to knock your father down a peg. That afternoon, I met Carlos at the building Roberto had found. It was perfect. Bigger than Jose's shop, better location on a main street instead of hidden in a strip mall, and the previous tenant had left behind some useful equipment. The rent was reasonable, and with Roberto's guarantee, we could move fast. We? Carlos asked when I started talking about lease terms. You in or what? Shit, yeah, I'm in. I hate my job anyway. Carlos isn't a mechanic, but he's good with people and understands money. Plus, he's got that rare ability to tell customers the truth without making them feel stupid. That evening, I started making the calls that would change everything. First call, Diego, our best mechanic at Jose's shop. He's been there 8 years, knows every regular customer by name, and does work that other shops charge twice as much for. But I'm not retiring. I'm opening my own place, and I want you to come with me. When? 2 weeks. I'm in. Esteban doesn't know shit about cars. Second call, Javier, our parts guy, who somehow always knew exactly what we needed and where to get it cheap. Esteban, running the shop? Dude, I give it 6 months before that place burns down. You want to help me build something better? When do we start? Third call, Esperanza, our front desk manager. Oh, thank God, she said when I explained my plan. I was already updating my resume. Esteban tried to explain his customer engagement protocols to me yesterday, and I wanted to throw my stapler at his head. By the end of the week, I'd secured the building, assembled my core team, and started setting up supplier relationships. The best part? Jose's suppliers were thrilled to work with me directly. I wasn't just another account to them. I was the guy who'd been placing orders and solving problems for years. But the real cherry on top came from an unexpected source. Roberto called me Friday night. You're not going to believe this, but I just got off the phone with Joaquin Morales. Joaquin owns the biggest landscaping company in town. They'd been Jose's biggest customer for the past 10 years, probably accounting for 30% of our total revenue. What did Joaquin want? He heard you quit, asked if I knew where you were going. Said he'd been thinking about switching shops anyway because your Jose's been getting lazy and Esteban doesn't know anything about commercial vehicles. I told him you were opening your own place. He wants to meet next week to discuss bringing his whole fleet over. That night, I sat in my empty apartment with a drink and actually smiled for the first time since this whole mess started. Not because I was happy, I was still pissed as hell, but because I could see the path forward, and it was going to be absolutely devastating. Jose thought he was setting Esteban up for success. What he actually did was hand me everything I needed to destroy them both, and I was going to enjoy every single minute of it. 6 weeks later, I'm standing in my shop, watching my team work on 8 different vehicles while customers wait in our comfortable lobby that actually has decent coffee and working Wi-Fi. But let me back up and tell you about the absolute shit show that Esteban created in his first month as manager. The idiot tried to implement some business school bullshit he learned about lean operations and cost optimization. In reality, this meant he fired Diego's part-time assistant to save money, started buying cheaper parts from suppliers nobody trusted, and tried to rush every job to increase productivity metrics. The result? Complete disaster. Carlos, who'd been keeping tabs on Jose's shop through his network of gossiping drink buddies, gave me updates that were equal parts hilarious and infuriating. Esteban told Mrs. Vasquez her transmission flush would take 2 hours because he wanted to exceed customer expectations. Took Diego 4 hours because the cheap fluid Esteban ordered was the wrong viscosity for her car. Customer waited all day, missed work, and left a 1-star review. Some contractor brought in a work truck with brake problems. Esteban quoted him for new pads without checking the rotors. When Diego found out the rotors were warped too, Esteban told the customer it was a separate issue and tried to charge him double. Guy walked out and took his business elsewhere. 3 customers complained to the State Business Bureau in Esteban's first month. His response was to blame Diego for not communicating the value proposition properly. Meanwhile, I was building something beautiful. The shop itself came together faster than I'd hoped. Roberto knew contractors who owed him favors, so we got the place renovated cheap and fast. 4 service bays, modern lift equipment, a parts room that actually made sense, and a customer area. But the real magic was the team. Diego brought over 2 other mechanics from Jose's shop, guys who'd been there for years, but were fed up with Esteban's amateur hour management. Javier not only came with us, but brought his whole network of parts suppliers who gave us better prices than Jose was getting. Esperanza turned our front office into something professional. No more handwritten invoices on carbon paper. No more customers standing around wondering what was happening with their car. No more, we'll call you when it's ready, and then forgetting to call. And Carlos? Carlos turned out to be a natural at the business side. Could explain a repair estimate to a customer without making them feel stupid, handle difficult people without losing his temper, and somehow always knew exactly what to say to calm a frustrated customer. Our opening day was supposed to be quiet, just a soft launch to work out any kinks before we started advertising. Instead, word had already spread through the local contractor community, and we had a line of work trucks waiting for us at 7 a.m. Joaquin Morales showed up with 3 of his fleet vehicles and a huge grin. Heard this is where the real mechanics ended up. By the end of our first week, we'd done more business than I'd expected for our first month. By the end of our first month, we were booked solid and already looking at expanding our hours. But here's the really satisfying part. Our success was directly proportional to Jose's failure. Every customer who came to us was a customer who wasn't going to them. Every job we completed was revenue they weren't getting. Every positive review we received online was a reminder that Esteban didn't know what the hell he was doing. The breaking point came about 2 months after I'd quit. Carlos came in on a Monday morning with the biggest shit-eating grin. Dude, you are not going to believe what happened this weekend. Apparently, Esteban had managed to completely screw up a simple brake job on a regular customer's car. Instead of replacing the brake pads, he'd somehow convinced himself that he could refurbish the old ones to save money. Used some YouTube tutorial and a Dremel tool like he was fixing a toaster. Result was brake failure 2 days later in a grocery store parking lot. No injuries, thank God, but a very pissed off customer and a potential lawsuit. The customer called Diego directly to complain, Carlos reported. Diego told him he didn't work there anymore and gave him our number. Guy's bringing the car in this afternoon. That afternoon, I got the most satisfying customer of my career. A guy who'd been going to Jose's shop for 15 years, explaining how Esteban had nearly gotten him killed with incompetent work, asking if I could fix both his car and his faith in local mechanics. Not only did we fix his car properly, but he left us a 5-star Google review that specifically mentioned Esteban's dangerous incompetence and our actual professional service. The best part? Jose called me that evening. Mateo, we need to talk. I'm busy, Jose. This lawsuit thing, it's serious. Esteban made a mistake, but not my problem anymore. Come on, mijo, we're family. Yeah? Where was that family loyalty when you threw 15 years of my work in the trash? I hung up before he could respond, and I've been hanging up on him ever since. Because here's the thing he never understood. Respect isn't something you inherit by being someone's father. It's something you earn by treating people right. Now he was watching 15 years of his work crumble while mine flourished, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. 4 months after opening my shop, I was living the dream I never knew I wanted. We'd expanded to 6 bays, hired 2 more mechanics, and had a waiting list that stretched out 3 weeks. Our reputation was spreading so fast that people were driving from neighboring towns just to have us work on their cars. The real entertainment was watching Jose's shop implode in slow motion. Esteban's incompetence wasn't just limited to that brake job fiasco. According to Carlos's intelligence network, which consisted of drinking buddies who loved drama more than soccer, Esteban was averaging about 1 major screw-up per week. He tried to replace a water pump without draining the coolant first, flooded the entire bay. Diego had to explain to him why you can't just patch it up with duct tape while the customer waited 4 hours for the mess to be cleaned up. One week, he quoted a customer $200 for a new transmission when all they needed was a fluid change and filter. When Diego corrected him, Esteban got pissed and told the customer Diego didn't understand profit margins. The customer walked out and posted about it in the local Facebook group. 2 more long-term customers bailed when Esteban tried to upsell them on services their cars didn't need. Word was getting around that the place wasn't trustworthy anymore. The lawsuit from the brake job was still pending, but it had already cost them their insurance provider. But my favorite development came from Roberto, who was getting regular updates from Jose himself. You're never going to guess who just called me asking for a loan. Jose? Your dear old father needs 12 grand to keep the shop running. Esteban's managed to screw up their relationship with every major supplier in town. Here's what had happened. Esteban, in his infinite wisdom, had decided that paying bills on time was inefficient cash flow management. He'd started stretching payment terms with suppliers, thinking he could invest that money elsewhere and make a profit. What he actually did was destroy 15 years of business relationships and get the shop put on cash-only terms with everyone from parts suppliers to the electric company. What did you tell him? I asked Roberto. I told him I'd consider it if he fired Esteban and made you a full partner. And he hung up on me. That same week, I got a visit from Jose himself. I was under the hood of a Silverado when Esperanza came back to tell me my father was in the lobby asking to speak with me. Part of me wanted to tell her to throw him out, but I was curious about what kind of desperate bullshit he was ready to spew. Found him standing in our waiting area, looking around at the clean floors, the modern equipment, the customers who were actually smiling while they waited. His expression was a mix of surprise and something that might have been regret. This is impressive, Mateo. Thanks. Look, mijo, I think we got off on the wrong foot with this whole Esteban situation. Wrong foot? Jose, you took 15 years of my work and handed it to someone who thinks brake fluid is a type of energy drink. Esteban's learning. He just needs time to... Esteban's a fraud, Jose. He's destroying everything you built. Jose's face got that stubborn look I knew so well. He has a degree, Mateo. He understands business principles that... Business principles don't mean shit if you can't do the actual work. We stared at each other for a moment. I'm not asking you to come back, he said finally. But maybe we could work together. Refer customers to each other, share resources. I actually laughed. Jose, I'm booked solid for the next month. I've got customers driving from 2 hours away because word got out that we actually know what we're doing. Why the hell would I want to associate my business with Esteban's amateur hour operation? Because we're family. Family doesn't abandon each other for someone with a piece of paper. He left without another word, and I went back to work with a smile on my face. That evening, Diego and I were closing up when he came over with the latest gossip from his former co-workers, who were still stuck at Jose's shop. They lost the Morales contract, Diego reported. Joaquin took all his vehicles somewhere else. Where'd they go? I asked, though I already knew. He called this morning. Wants to set up a maintenance schedule for his whole fleet. The Morales fleet had been 30% of Jose's business. Now it was going to be a significant chunk of mine. 6 months into running my shop, and I was having the time of my life. We'd added 2 more bays, hired another mechanic, and installed a customer lounge with actual comfortable chairs and a coffee machine that didn't taste like transmission fluid. I was watching Esteban's continued descent into automotive hell. The kid had managed to alienate almost every supplier in town. According to Diego's sources, his ex-girlfriend worked at the parts store, Esteban had convinced himself that he could negotiate better deals by playing hardball with vendors who'd been working with Jose for decades. He tried to tell Ramirez Auto Parts that he could get cheaper prices online. When Ramirez told him good luck with next-day delivery and warranty support, Esteban said he didn't need to pay for premium services. Now they were buying parts retail from chain auto stores and trying to charge customers wholesale prices. The profit margin was so thin they were barely breaking even. But Esteban's masterstroke of stupidity came when he decided to modernize their diagnostic procedures. Instead of using Diego's 15 years of experience to troubleshoot problems, Esteban bought some expensive computer diagnostic equipment and decided that machines were more reliable than human expertise. The problem was, computer diagnostics only tell you what's wrong, not why it's wrong, or how to fix it efficiently. Some guy brought in a Mercedes with an engine light. The computer said it was an oxygen sensor. Esteban ordered a $400 sensor and spent 6 hours trying to install it. What was actually wrong? Loose gas cap, 30-second fix. Did Esteban learn from this? Nope. He blamed the computer. The coup de grace came when Esteban tried to expand their services to include bodywork, a field he knew absolutely nothing about. He'd convinced Jose that they were leaving money on the table by not offering collision repair, and somehow talked him into buying spray painting equipment. Their first bodywork customer was a simple paint touch-up on a Honda Civic. Esteban, with his typical confidence, assured the customer it would be good as new in 2 days. Carlos was practically crying with laughter when he told me what happened next. He didn't prep the surface properly, used the wrong type of paint, and didn't let it cure long enough before applying the clear coat. The customer posted pictures on social media. It looked like someone had attacked the car with a paintbrush during an earthquake. The comments were brutal, people sharing their own Esteban horror stories, others posting jokes about abstract automotive art. Jose had to refund the customer's money and pay for proper bodywork at another shop. Total cost, $4,200 for a job that should have been $300. But here's where the story gets really good. That same customer came to us the following week. "I heard you guys actually know what you're doing," he said. "Can you fix what that idiot did to my car?" Not only did we fix it, but we did it for half what Esteban had quoted originally. The customer was so impressed that he brought his wife's car in the next week, then referred 3 of his co-workers. This became a pattern. Esteban would screw something up, Jose would have to pay to fix it elsewhere, and those customers would eventually find their way to us. It was like Esteban was working as our unpaid marketing department. Best advertising money never bought. The breaking point came when Esteban managed to destroy a customer's engine through sheer incompetence. A regular customer brought in a pickup truck for a simple oil change. Esteban, trying to show initiative, decided to also check the transmission fluid without being asked. Somehow, and I still don't understand the physics of this, he managed to drain the transmission fluid and refill it with motor oil. The customer made it 3 blocks before the transmission seized completely. Jose had to buy the guy a new truck. That night, I got 3 phone calls. First was Roberto, who'd heard about the transmission incident and couldn't stop laughing. "Your brother just cost your father about 15 grand, Roberto wheezed. Customers talking about suing for the difference between what his truck was worth and what he owes on the loan. Second call was from Joaquin, who'd heard the same story and wanted to make sure all his fleet vehicles were scheduled well in advance. "Mateo, I've got 23 trucks that keep my business running. I can't afford to have one of them destroyed by someone who doesn't know transmission fluid from motor oil." Third call was from Jose himself. When I saw his name on the caller ID, I almost didn't answer, but I was curious. "Mateo, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Esteban made a mistake today, a big one." "I heard." "I can't keep covering for him. The insurance company is threatening to drop us completely. We've lost most of our customers. I don't know what to do." For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "You could fire Esteban and try to rebuild. He's family, Mateo. I can't just—" "So was I, Jose. That didn't stop you." I hung up and went back to my drink. Esteban was family, but somehow that only mattered when it was convenient for Jose. When it came to choosing between his sons, he'd pick the one with the degree over the one with the experience. Now he was living with that choice, and it was destroying everything he'd built. Good. Some lessons are expensive. 8 months after I walked out, Jose's shop was a hollowed-out shell of what it used to be. I wasn't even getting updates from Carlos anymore. The collapse was so complete and obvious that everyone in town knew what was happening. My shop, meanwhile, was thriving beyond my wildest expectations. We'd expanded to 10 bays, hired 8 mechanics, and were seriously considering opening a second location across town. Our customer base had grown so large that we had to implement an appointment system just to manage the workflow. But the real satisfaction came from watching Jose's growing desperation. Roberto had become my unofficial intelligence source, partly because he enjoyed watching his brother fail, but mostly because Jose kept calling him for loans. Your Jose called again last week, Roberto told me over drinks one Friday. Needs 25 grand this time. Says Esteban's got a business plan to turn things around. What kind of business plan? Something about partnering with a chain of quick lube places. Esteban thinks they can rebrand as an automotive service center instead of a repair shop. I nearly choked on my drink. What did you tell him? Same thing I always tell him. Fire Esteban, and we'll talk. And he said Esteban just needs more time to implement his vision. His vision. Like destroying a family business was some kind of artistic expression. Esteban's vision, as it turned out, was to destroy what little remained of their reputation in the most spectacular way possible. The Quick Lube partnership was exactly as disastrous as you'd expect. He had convinced some franchise owner that they could handle overflow from their 3 locations around town. The idea was that simple oil changes would keep the bays busy while they rebuilt their repair business. What actually happened was that he managed to drain the wrong fluid from 6 different cars in his first week as a Quick Lube specialist. He drained the brake fluid from a Toyota and tried to refill it with motor oil. Customer noticed the brake pedal going to the floor before she left the parking lot. Had to have the car towed for emergency brake repair. Cost Jose $1,200, plus the Quick Lube place dropped their contract. That same week, Esteban managed to strip the oil drain plug on a brand new BMW, cross-thread the oil filter on a Mercedes, and somehow put diesel motor oil in a gasoline engine. Jose was now personally liable for thousands of dollars in damage. The State Business Bureau had opened a formal investigation, and their liability insurance had been canceled entirely. But the final nail in the coffin came from an unexpected source: the State Automotive Licensing Board. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint claiming they were allowing unlicensed personnel to perform safety-critical repairs. Since Esteban had never bothered to get his automotive technician certification, he figured his business degree was sufficient. This was technically accurate. The state sent an inspector who found evidence of substandard work, improper procedures, and what the official report called systemic incompetence in safety-critical systems. They got shut down pending a full investigation. Esperanza heard about this from a friend who worked at the courthouse. They've got a cease and desist order posted on the front door, she told me. No customers, no work, no revenue until they can prove compliance with state licensing requirements. That evening, I was in my office doing paperwork when Carlos knocked on the door. "You've got a visitor." I looked up to see Jose standing in my doorway, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past 8 months. "Hello, Mateo." "Jose." He sat down across from my desk and just stared at his hands for a moment. "They shut us down," I heard. 23 years. I built that place from nothing, and now it's gone. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Esteban's talking about bankruptcy. Says we should just walk away. Start over somewhere else. He looked up at me with eyes that were red-rimmed and exhausted. I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something that might have been sympathy. This was my father, the man who'd taught me to drive, who'd shown me how to change my first oil filter, who'd once been proud of the business he'd built. But then I remembered 15 years of promises. 15 years of, "This will be yours someday." 15 years of choosing someone else the moment it actually mattered. "Yeah, Jose, you did." He sat there for another minute, maybe hoping I'd offer to help, maybe hoping I'd suggest some way to fix what Esteban had broken. But I didn't offer anything, because some mistakes are too big to fix. Finally, he stood up and walked toward the door. "I'm proud of what you've built here, Mateo. Your mother would be proud too." And then he was gone. I sat in my office for another minute, then got back to work. Tomorrow was going to be busy, and I had a business to run. 2 weeks after Jose's pathetic visit to my office, I got the call I'd been expecting for months. It was Esteban, and he sounded like a man who'd finally realized he was drowning. "Mateo, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "Can you meet me and Jose at the shop? We've got a proposition for you." After 8 months of watching them destroy everything Jose had built, after all the lawsuits and insurance cancellations and state investigations, now they had a proposition. "I'll be there in an hour." I called Carlos and Roberto. If this was going to be the final conversation, I wanted witnesses. We pulled up to the shop to find Jose and Esteban waiting in the parking lot. The state's cease and desist order was still taped to the front door, and the whole place had that abandoned look of a business that's already dead. Jose looked even worse than he had 2 weeks ago. Esteban, on the other hand, was still trying to maintain some shred of dignity despite the circumstances. Still wearing his business casual polo shirt, still carrying himself like he thought he was in charge. "Mateo," Jose started, "thanks for coming." What do you want? Esteban stepped forward, and I could see he'd prepared some kind of speech. Look, Mateo, we all know there have been some operational challenges over the past few months. Operational challenges. Even now, with his family's business in ruins, Esteban couldn't admit he'd screwed up. It was all just operational challenges. But we think there's an opportunity here for all of us to benefit from a partnership. Carlos actually snorted with laughter. Roberto just shook his head. Here's what we're proposing, Esteban continued. You take over the day-to-day operations. We'll handle the business side. Marketing, customer relations, financial planning. It'll be like combining the best of both approaches. What's in it for me? We'll make you a partner. Equal shares, equal say in all decisions. I looked at Jose, who was nodding eagerly. It makes sense, Mateo. You've got the technical expertise. Esteban's got the business background. Together, you could rebuild this place into something even better. And what happens to Esteban's current management position? I'll step back into more of a consulting role, Esteban said. Focus on strategy and long-term planning while you handle the operational details. Operational details. Like actually knowing how to fix cars. So let me get this straight, I said. After 8 months of Esteban destroying your business, you want me to come back and fix everything while he continues to collect a paycheck for having opinions about shit he doesn't understand. It's not like that, Jose protested. This would be a fresh start for everyone. A fresh start, with the same people who created this mess in the first place. Esteban's composure was starting to crack. Look, Mateo, I know you're upset about how things went down, but this isn't just about family anymore. This is about salvaging what we can from a difficult situation. What you can salvage. Jose, how much money have you lost since Esteban took over? Jose's face went pale. Mateo, that's not... How much, Jose? Because I've been keeping track. The transmission replacement, the brake job lawsuit, the insurance cancellations, the lost customers, the state fines. What's the total damage? $58,000, Jose whispered. 58 grand. In 8 months. I turned to Esteban. And you want me to help you salvage what's left? Mistakes were made, Esteban said. But that's in the past now. We need to focus on moving forward. Here's the thing, Esteban. My shop did $220,000 in revenue last month. We're booked solid for the next month. I've got customers driving from 3 counties away because word got out that we actually know what we're doing. I let that sink in for a moment. So explain to me why I would want to associate my successful business with your spectacular failure. Because we're family, Jose said desperately. Where was that family loyalty when you handed 15 years of my work to someone who doesn't know brake fluid from motor oil? I made a mistake. Here's my counter proposition, I said. You sell me the building, the equipment, and whatever's left of the business for whatever you can get. I'll hire back any of your remaining employees who are actually competent. Jose, you can retire like you should have done months ago. Esteban, you can go find another business to destroy. You can't be serious, Esteban sputtered. Dead serious. That's the only deal I'm offering. Jose looked like I'd slapped him. We're not looking to sell. We're looking to rebuild. With what money? I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at them one more time. You know what the funny thing is? I spent 15 years building this business for you, Jose. I could have gone to college, could have gotten a degree, could have had a dozen different careers. But I chose to stay here because I believed in what we were building together. And the moment you had to choose between your sons, you picked the one with the piece of paper over the one who actually knew how to do the job. Jose was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. So here's how this ends. Esteban destroyed your business. I built my own. You chose him. And now you get to live with that choice. Carlos, Roberto, and I got in our trucks and drove away, leaving Jose and Esteban standing in the parking lot of their dead business. 1 week later, my phone buzzed with a text from Roberto. Auctions tomorrow. Your Jose's shop sold to that tire chain for $30K. Bankruptcy papers filed this morning. I turned my phone off and got back to reviewing our quarterly reports. 2 locations, 22 employees. Not bad for an assistant.